Lust is one of the most powerful forces in human nature, an emotion so overwhelming that it has brought down kings, destroyed nations, shattered families, and rewritten history. The Bible warns of it repeatedly, showing that no matter how strong, wise, or favored a man may be, desire has the power to consume him from within. It is a fire that burns without limit, a craving that blinds the mind, a hunger that is never truly satisfied. And the most terrifying truth about lust is this: it does not care who you are. It does not bow before wisdom, it does not fear power, it does not respect righteousness. It has destroyed the mighty, the righteous, the chosen. It has turned kings into beggars, warriors into slaves, and prophets into broken men. Even those who walked with God, who were given divine wisdom, who were set apart from others, even they fell to it. The Bible is filled with stories of men who had everything: power, wisdom, divine favor, yet still lost themselves to lust. The warnings are clear, the consequences devastating, yet time and time again, even the greatest men in history found themselves unable to resist the pull of desire. It is a sin that disguises itself as pleasure, a force that seems harmless at first, but once entertained, it grows, it corrupts, and it consumes. The moment a man believes he can control it, he has already lost. King David was a man after God's own heart, a warrior, a leader, a chosen king of Israel. He had been blessed with victories, given divine guidance, raised from a shepherd boy to the ruler of a great nation. He had everything: wealth, power, respect, but lust did not care. When David saw Bathsheba bathing on a rooftop, he allowed desire to take root in his heart. He could have turned away. He could have resisted. He could have remembered that he was a king, a man of God, a leader who was supposed to uphold righteousness. But lust does not whisper reason, it screams for indulgence. And David, the mighty king, the chosen one, fell. The moment he gave in to temptation, he set in motion a series of events that would bring him unbearable suffering. He took another man's wife. He tried to cover his sin. He sent Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, to the front lines of battle, ensuring that he would be killed. One act of lust had turned into deception, manipulation, and murder. And even though David repented, even though he sought forgiveness, the consequences of his sin could not be erased. His household was torn apart. His sons turned against each other. His reign, once blessed, became filled with sorrow. The price of lust was not just guilt, it was destruction. But David was not the only king to fall. Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, a man who spoke with God, who wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, who was given understanding beyond measure, even he was destroyed by desire. Solomon had everything a man could want, yet it was lust that led him away from God. He took 700 wives and 300 concubines, and with them came foreign gods, pagan rituals, and spiritual decay. The man who once sought wisdom above all else allowed his desires to control him, and in doing so, he lost the very thing that had made him great. His kingdom, once unified, began to crumble. His legacy, once built on wisdom, became a warning of how even the greatest minds can be deceived by lust. And then there was Samson, a man of unmatched strength, a warrior chosen before birth, set apart as a Nazirite, blessed by God with power beyond human limits. No army could defeat him. No weapon could match him. He was feared by his enemies, unstoppable in battle. But lust does not care how strong a man is. Samson's downfall was not war, not betrayal from his enemies, not the might of an opposing army. It was a woman. Delilah did not have a sword. She did not have soldiers. She did not need them. All she had to do was seduce him, to stroke his ego, to make him believe that he was in control. She did what no army could do. She brought down the strongest man in Israel. She pressed him for his secret, tested his weakness, played with his desire until he finally gave her what she wanted. And when he did, when he revealed the source of his strength, he was taken captive, his eyes gouged out, his freedom stripped away, his power gone. The man who could slay 1,000 men with his bare hands had been defeated not by force, but by his own weakness. The Bible does not tell these stories for entertainment. They are warnings. Warnings that even the strongest, the wisest, the most powerful are not immune to lust. That no man should ever believe he is too righteous, too intelligent, too disciplined to fall. That desire, when unchecked, will always lead to ruin. The terrifying truth about lust is that it is never satisfied. A man thinks he can have a little and be content, but lust always wants more. More women, more indulgence, more pleasure. It convinces him that he can control it, that he can take what he wants without consequence, that he is different from those who have fallen before. But every man who has thought this has been wrong. Lust does not stop when it gets what it wants. It grows, it spreads, it consumes, until a man no longer recognizes himself. The Bible warns that lust leads to destruction, not just in this life, but in eternity. Proverbs 6 verse 26 says, "For by means of a harlot, a man is reduced to a piece of bread, and the adulteress will prey upon his precious life." Lust strips a man of his dignity, his self-control, his wisdom. It reduces him to something small, something weak, something desperate. And in the end, it leaves him with nothing. Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 6 verse 18, "Flee from sexual immorality." Not resist, not fight. Flee. Because the moment a man begins to negotiate with desire, the battle is already lost. The only way to overcome lust is to run from it, to shut it down before it takes root, to recognize that no man is above its power. But there is hope. Lust does not have to win. The same Bible that warns of its dangers also offers a way out. Self-control, discipline, a mind fixed on things above, a heart surrendered to God. These are the weapons that can defeat even the strongest desires. A man who fears God more than he craves pleasure, who values righteousness more than temporary satisfaction, who seeks wisdom instead of indulgence. This is the man who will not fall. History has proven that even kings, even the strongest, even the wisest have been brought down by lust. But the Bible does not only tell of men who fell, it tells of men who overcame. Joseph was tempted by Potiphar's wife, lured by the promise of pleasure, but he ran. He did not entertain the thought, did not hesitate, did not try to resist. He fled. And because of that, God exalted him, raised him from slavery to power, honored him for his righteousness. The difference between those who fell and those who overcame was not strength, not intelligence, not status. It was the ability to recognize that desire is never worth the cost. Lust is not just a temptation of the flesh. It is a force that rewires the mind, reshapes priorities, and blinds even the most disciplined men to the destruction they are walking into. The Bible does not merely present lust as an immoral indulgence. It reveals it as a weapon, one that has been used to dismantle great men, to corrupt the righteous, to lure leaders into choices that shattered their legacies. It is subtle at first, appearing as mere attraction, a passing thought, an innocent curiosity. But once it is entertained, once it is allowed to take root, it grows, twisting logic, overpowering reason, convincing even the strongest that they are in control when, in truth, they are already slaves to it. The danger of lust is that it does not demand destruction all at once. It works in stages. First, it presents itself as harmless, as something that can be controlled, as something that a person can step into and out of without consequence. Then, once the mind has accepted its presence, it begins to demand more. What once satisfied no longer does. The boundaries that once seemed unbreakable begin to erode. The conscience, once sharp and alert, becomes dull, indifferent, numbed by indulgence. A man who once feared sin begins to justify it. He begins to tell himself that he deserves this pleasure, that he has worked hard, that no one will know, that it is not truly harming anyone. But every man who has followed this path has learned the truth too late. Lust does not stop until it has taken everything. The Bible repeatedly shows that lust is not just a personal failing. It is a curse that spreads beyond the individual. It is not just the man who indulges who suffers. It is his family, his legacy, his kingdom, his future. The destruction that lust brings is never contained. It poisons everything around it, like a fire that consumes everything in its path. David's affair with Bathsheba did not only cost him his peace, it tore apart his household. His children turned against one another. His own son, Absalom, rebelled against him, seeking to overthrow his father's throne. What began as a private indulgence ended as a national crisis. Lust is dangerous because it disguises itself as love. It whispers that what is being pursued is not just desire, but something deeper, something fulfilling. This is why so many men fall into it, not believing themselves to be acting out of lust, but out of longing for connection, excitement, meaning. But lust and love are not the same. Love is patient, love is disciplined, love seeks to build. Lust is reckless, lust is impulsive, lust does not care what is destroyed in its pursuit. A man ruled by love protects what he values. A man ruled by lust risks everything he values. The Bible warns that lust is never satisfied. Proverbs 27 verse 20. It does not end when a man gets what he wants. It only grows hungrier. This is why Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, did not stop at one indulgence. He had 700 wives, 300 concubines, a number that would be absurd to any rational person. But lust is not rational. It does not fulfill. It enslaves. And Solomon, despite his wisdom, became a prisoner to his own desires. The man who had written that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, Proverbs 9 verse 10, had forgotten his own words, had allowed his heart to be led away, had let the very thing he warned against consume him. But lust does not only attack individuals. It is a force that corrupts entire societies. The Bible describes times when nations were overcome with indulgence, when entire civilizations collapsed because they had given themselves fully to the pursuit of pleasure without restraint. Sodom and Gomorrah are perhaps the most well-known examples. Cities that had grown so obsessed with their own desires that they had abandoned morality entirely. Their destruction was not a punishment out of nowhere. It was the natural result of a people consumed by their own passions. When a society begins to value pleasure over righteousness, when it elevates indulgence over discipline, when it encourages lust rather than warning against it, its downfall is not a possibility. It is an inevitability. The deception of lust is that it tells people they are gaining something when in reality, they are losing themselves. It promises satisfaction but delivers emptiness. It offers excitement but brings shame. It presents itself as a gift but always demands a higher price than expected. And the price is never just the indulgence itself. It is everything that comes after. Guilt, regret, broken trust, broken families, lost opportunities, a life that could have been lived with purpose, now wasted in endless cycles of indulgence that never truly satisfy. Jesus gave the strongest warning about lust in Matthew 5 verse 28, saying, "Anyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart." This is because lust is not about action. It is about the heart. A man who allows lust to live in his mind has already surrendered part of himself to it, even before he acts. This is why resisting lust is not just about avoiding temptation. It is about transforming the way a man thinks. The only way to defeat lust is not through willpower alone, but through a complete renewal of the mind, Romans 12 verse 2, a shift in thinking where purity is valued over indulgence, where discipline is seen as greater than pleasure, where a man understands that true fulfillment does not come from taking whatever he desires, but from mastering his desires before they master him. But for those who have already fallen, for those who have already been consumed by lust, there is still hope. The Bible does not leave men without a path to redemption. David repented and was restored. Samson, even in his blindness, cried out to God and was given strength one last time. The prodigal son, who had wasted his life in reckless living, was welcomed home by the Father. The mercy of God is greater than the deepest sins. But mercy does not erase consequences. A man can be forgiven, but that does not mean he will not bear the scars of his choices. A broken marriage does not always heal. A shattered reputation is not always restored. A kingdom lost is not always given back. This is why the greatest victory is not in falling and being redeemed, it is in never falling at all. Lust is a force that has destroyed kings, warriors, and prophets. It has broken nations, ruined families, stolen dreams. It has taken the strongest and made them weak. It has taken the wisest and made them fools. It has taken those closest to God and led them far from Him. Desire can destroy even the strongest. But the man who masters himself, the man who values discipline over indulgence, the man who fears God more than he desires pleasure, this is the man who cannot be shaken. The question is not whether lust will come for you. It will. The question is, will you be ready?